First off, to be totally honest with you, if things weren't so slow right now because of the strikes and I didn't so desperately need things to cover, I don't think I ever would have seen the Expendables 4 because I thought the trailers didn't look very good, and I've kind of fallen out of, well, I don't think I was ever in love with the franchise, but I kind of feel like why is this thing still going? I mean, I did see the first 2 movies for sure, maybe the third. And for a moment there, I think Sylvester Stallone had, at the very least, a viable idea. But Expendables 4 looked like it was running on fumes, so I certainly never would have seen it personally. But I don't think I would have covered it either if it weren't for the strikes. And again, just needing things to cover. But I do need things to cover, so I went to the press screening, and I suspect some of you, as movie fans, might find yourself in a similar situation where you want to go to the movies this weekend. This is the only game in town that's a new release, a major new wide release. So you might go see the Expendables 4. And while watching this, part of me felt, because of the strikes, wow, we really are scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point. We got to end these strikes because, it can't get any lower than this. But on the other hand, I don't think that's fair to Expendables fans. Because again, as I said, I'm not the audience for this movie. So while I think it's the bottom of the barrel, other people might think it's a fabulous martini drink. And also, to be fair, I do have some positive things to say about the film. And we'll say those positive things in a moment. But also some very negative things that I think even fans would be like, I'll give you that because that was ridiculous. Now, talking about fans, at my press screening, they filled the theater with fans. So that's a trick that studios and PR companies will do. If they think critics are not going to like a movie, and I wish they'd done this for me with Super Mario Brothers, because, critics didn't like that movie. I was not the only one who didn't like it. And if there had been fans at my screening, I would have been like, oh, okay, fans like this. So they filled this screening with fans, and even though they talked through the entire movie, which was incredibly frustrating, it was a good thing that the studio did that, because I could tell from their constant commentary and laughters and oohs and ahs that they were having a very good time. I didn't laugh or ooh and ah, but they made me jump and flinch a couple of times because there were some brutal fights, particularly towards the end, where I was like, whoa. And that's kind of amusing. That's why you see a fight movie, right? So I guess if you would be interested in seeing the Expendables 4 in the first place, you might really like this movie. But there are a couple of things I want to either warn or prepare you for, depending on where you are on the movie fan spectrum. Now, I know some fans of the Expendables franchise were annoyed that the last installment was PG-13. In fact, when I tweeted that I was seeing the press screening, one of you even tweeted me that. Well, rest assured, this is a hard R. But not just for violence. This is a surprisingly crude film, far more than the other movies. As I said, I definitely saw the first 2. Not sure about the third, but I had never thought of this as a crude franchise, and where this one, again, surprised me, and that's just a tone that's not for me. There are pole dancers. There is a brief but very clear shot of, let's say, male anatomy, which really caught me off guard. I was like, whoa, it's talking about buying someone a drink first. And then I guess the movie would feel technically they did, because it takes place at said pole dancing environment. But also, throughout the film, very frank talk of sexy time. And, it was a bit much for me personally. I watch HBO, right? And I've seen a lot of adult material, but I think the crude tone is what I didn't care for. And I was surprised that it was coming from a Stallone and Statham film, who I thought were a little bit classier. Their brands were. Well, actually, come to think of it, Jason Statham made a movie called Crank back in the day. Whew! I should not have seen that with my family. And I'm trying to save any families from going to see the Expendables 4. And I didn't see the second Crank because the first one was too much for me. But that was, I would say, that might be even a little bit more crude. But that's the same ballpark in terms of crudeness. I also feel, even more so than the previous films, that they leaned a little too heavily into the gag of these guys being past their prime. I get that's the whole angle for the franchise, but the whole point is that then they go and they kick butt as well as they ever did. But here, They don't. This is really Jason Statham's movie, a Jason Statham movie in Expendables clothing. A large portion of the film just features Jason Statham. In fact, as I said, it becomes a Jason Statham movie. I was like, hey, wait a minute. And I wasn't complaining because I like Jason Statham movies. I think that when he takes over the film, it becomes less crude and more focused on the action. So I enjoyed that stuff more. Now, the movie also looks shockingly cheap, yet somehow cost $100 million. That must have all gone into salaries and probably reshoots because the opening mission just seems so tacked on. Like, it's so shockingly cheap looking. I mean, the VFX are so bad that they look like they aren't done rendering, or they were done by like beginner VFX students or interns. And the blatant use of green screen often takes you out of the film. It's some of the worst green screen I've ever seen. And anyone can do green screen at this point. Like, there's one shot where Sylvester Stallone is supposed to be going to Jason Statham and Megan Fox's house, and he's standing outside, and he rings the doorbell, and they have a shot with some houses behind him, and it's clearly green screen to the point of ridiculousness. I mean, it's just really, it's so bad, you can't believe that it got released. So a movie like this, obviously, though, at the end of the day, is all about the action and the cast, right? So as for the action, once they get to the big cargo ship, where, again, most of the movie takes place, the Jason Statham part, and again, it's clearly all on a soundstage with green screens. This green screen on the ship was a little better, but you were like, that's not a real ship. Come on. But still, I think this allowed them to focus more. And the movie got better, including the action. And there are some clever setups here. There was one motorcycle shot, which was pretty cool. I was like, that's pretty nice. And Jason Statham is a very good fighter. And I think he really delivered, again, when he kind of took the movie over. His fight against the Raid's Iko Uwais is excellent. That's the one that I was like, ooh, I guess I did ooh and ah a little bit. They got me. Even though Uwais' role is horribly underwritten and cliche. I was like, oh, Iko Uwais. You know, just the other day I was reviewing The Continental, and I said, who, by the way, at one point appeared in the Expendables movies, and I was like, I don't think this is beneath Mel Gibson, but I felt this was beneath Iko Uwais. As for Statham and Stallone, I think they're getting paid more probably than Iko Uwais. So I'm very aware that, you know, they're getting paid. They're working. These guys they're making the donuts with this movie. And then after Statham, I thought that Tony Jaa comes across best, not only with some good but very short fight scenes, but what I liked most about his character was how funny he was. He had some great lines that Jaa delivers very, very well. He shows up only in the second act, but that also helps to make the movie, in my opinion, much better. Sylvester Stallone is hardly in the film at all, surprisingly. There are a couple of twists and turns with this character that were not at all surprising. I was like, if you've ever seen a movie before. But he does, I think mostly he proves that men also can have too much plastic surgery. Andy Garcia is clearly collecting a paycheck here as well, but is also respectful of the material. Although there's one scene, this was hilarious. I can't believe this made it into the final cut. So somebody knocks Andy Garcia unconscious and he's being dragged out of a room, right? But as he's dragged out, you can actually see Andy Garcia's hand go up and catch the door frame to steady himself and protect himself. And you're like, he's supposed to be unconscious. That's the kind of movie this is. I mean, sometimes it did almost veer into like SNL sketch territory, only it wasn't particularly funny. I mean, my audience gave it some chuckles. They were laughing at a lot of the old man jokes, which I don't know, I felt it robbed the film of some dignity, the way they handled it. All right, so Megan Fox is Megan Fox. One woman behind me who talked for the entire movie did not care for Fox. And every time Fox came on screen, she made everyone well aware that she felt Megan Fox could not act and that they should have cast someone else in the role. But Fox's line readings are serviceable, right? And I think that Fox delivers on her brand. I mean, she can't act, but who at this point expects her to? So I thought she was fine. I thought she was fine. There's also, by the way, at the end shot, the end scene, I was surprised. Again, this is the kind of movie this is. She walked out fully without she had a shirt on, barely, but like no bra. And so, again, it was just, and again, there's nudity in lots of films that I've seen and appreciated and loved, but it was kind of like crude and kind of a little classless. All right, so everyone else is more of a cameo, with Dolph Lundgren coming off best, largely because of his willingness to be silly and make fun of himself in a good-natured way. He had some good gags. Oh, and Jacob Scipio from Bad Boys and the unreleased Batgirl. This is beneath him as well. He deserves better than this. I'm sad that this is as far as his career has been able to get. But he does a very good Antonio Banderas impression. In fact, I didn't recognize him at first. He seems younger here than he did in the Bad Boys film. And for a minute, I thought he was actually related to Antonio Banderas. That's how good he was. In the end, this is a very faded and watered down version of what this franchise was originally supposed to be, right? Icons of action movies of the past still proving that they've got it. But now it's like still proving that they can get paid. And a lot of them have bowed out at this point. It really plays more like a Netflix movie and not one of the really good ones. Like this is night and day compared to Extraction 2. That's like a work of art. That's on the level of John Wick. And that's where the action franchise, that's where the action genre is going today. And so this is just, it's not only just too far of a reach back, but I don't think it holds its head high. I don't think that it does a good job representing what old school action movies used to be. I mean, if you watch some of the ones that hold up forever, like Die Hard, you're still good to this day. And Lethal Weapon, you can still watch these movies. And this just makes them seem, it just doesn't paint them in the light that they should be painted. It certainly doesn't seem like a movie for theaters. But again, the fans at my screening seem to be entertained. So if you are also a fan of The Expendables and feel like hitting the multiplex this weekend and like you have a movie theater subscription so it doesn't cost you any extra money to go, why not? Just be prepared for the crudeness and who you decide to go with. All right, so that's my review of The Expendables 4 hitting theaters this weekend. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more movies right now.